For those of you who don't know who Edgar Cayce is, he was a psychic. He's the only psychic that has never made a wrong prediction. One is misinterpreted. Well, I'll explain that in a minute. He was a psychic of the 1800s, earlier to mid-1900s. He predicted the stock market crash of 1929, the rise in 1931. He predicted when Hitler would reign, all the details of the war, the alliances, when they would enter. He predicted the 44th president would be black. Obama was black. He predicted JFK and FDR's death. He predicted when the Dead Sea Scrolls would be found, that blood would be a diagnostic tool, that we'd have in the 21st century, we'd have wireless cell phones, explain the technology. By the end of it, we'd have wireless TVs, like tons of predictions. All right. And he also predicted that the rise of Atlantis would happen in 1968. That's when the Bimini Road in the Atlantic Ocean was found. Now, he also predicted the pole shift. And in this prediction, he explained it, that it would be a huge shift, and that where it's cold would become tropical. Now, I found a lot more details I'll explain tomorrow. It's a 90-degree shift. So there was no ice age. That's why there was an ice age that didn't even hit South America. It was the edge. So where you can see Atlantis, this also shifted into Antarctica. That's why there's pyramids there. There's actually no other explanation for this. Now, we also have pyramids under Cuba. There's no other pyramids in Cuba, because that was connected to Atlantis. Egypt, Bimini, and Yucatan were the three ancient repositories that were going to resurface in this cycle right before it happens. Bimini, I've already talked about. Egypt is the underwater ruins of Theonis. Yucatan was the ancient Mayan relics and skeletons found in this whole inner earth system of caves under the water. So check, check, and check. And so the misinterpreted prediction, people say, oh, well, he said that LA and New York will be in the ocean in 1998. That is absolutely not what he said. He said the cycle of the pole shift begins 58 to 98, and then it's rain, and even specifies in 2000, still the first cycle of the pole shift. So 98 was when NASA first detected the pole shift that could be of concern. And in 58 was when NASA was started, because there was a big concern. Edgar Cayce specifically mentions that it's sunspots that cause these cycles. I just said the sun blew up. This happened greatly from 97 to 98. And it caused a radio blackout, which Edgar Cayce also mentions in the pole shifts. And notice the sun exploding on this stamp with the creation of atom hands conjoined. Kind of interesting that the book that the CIA sanitized by Shan Thomas about this pole shift is called The Adam and Eve Story. I found evidence that Cuba, their underwater ruins, pyramids, used to be Atlantis before the pole shift, that's 11,000 years old. And National Geographic was going to do a story on it. Pauline Zalowski and her husband, they were looking for a colonial era gold, like ships full of it. I told you a few times they were stealing everybody's gold. And instead they found these pyramids, they found Sphinx under there, and then of course, the story got repressed. There's something called the San Andreas Fault Line. It goes right down the center of California. It's responsible for its high-powered earthquakes, and recent discoveries show that it's about to crack. And when it does, California could slip into this. This is exactly what Edgar Cayce says is going to happen when the pole shift happens. High-powered earthquake that's going to make California slip into the sea. The other city that he mentions that's going to slip in the sea is New York City. Nostradamus' prediction, end times prediction, says the cataclysm will happen in the Great New City. So this is definitely New York City. And Edgar Cayce says that a star is going to appear in the sky. This star is also mentioned in Revelations, by the Mayans, by the Hopi, by pretty much any end-time prophecy. He also mentions the radio blackout, that the sun is going to be blacked out. This is what happened in 1958 when he said this cycle begins, which we hadn't even seen that when he was alive. And the quote that made it all click was that he said, those who are frigid and semi-frigid will be moved into where it's tropical. Even though I've told you guys that Shan Thomas said that India will be in the North Pole, and everything that Shan Thomas says aligns perfectly with Cayce, only he goes into greater detail. Plus, he had his book sanitized by the CIA, so we know he's right. So he says the Bay of Bengal will be in the North Pole, and Peru, west of Peru, like the Pacific Ocean, will be in the South Pole. But remember, it's reversal. So last time we were in the North Pole, Atlantis was where we are. Atlantis moved to Antarctica. So I went back to him for, confirmation. He absolutely confirms this. He says it's not a matter, ice ages are not a matter of retracting and ice growing, that it's a matter of different polar regions in the Earth at different times. Goes into detail about the whole thing. So, good news is there is no global ice age, but more good news, we won't be surviving anyways. There's 1,000-mile-per-hour winds that is just going to destroy everything. Both Edgar Cayce and Shan Thomas make mention of the only people surviving are those in the government facility mountains. And more good news, the continent of Africa has cracked in half, making way for the world's sixth ocean. According to Shan Thomas, this little section with Kenya is the one that's going to survive. I've got a few different answers on when the last ice age ended. Gotten 14,000, 20,000, and 11,000. Gotten 11,000 most. I think they're off by 1,000 years. It's 12,000 years. I also think Planet X's orbit is off by 3,000 years. I think it takes 12,000 years to orbit. 97,000 BCE. Exactly 12,000 years ago. 12,023 years ago. There was such a violent solar storm that it melted the ice age in one day. And it turned the rock into glass. This is hard evidence that is exactly dating, accurate dating. So I think this evidence proves that. And then also, remember, Nostradamus said that the new city is going to have this impact, which I believe is to be the New World. Exactly 12,000 years ago, North America, 75% of our species went extinct. And in the South American desert, they found large patches of meteor glass from exactly 12,000 years ago. Not only do they have this extraterrestrial mineral evidence, but they have evidence of explosion.
Scientists had found what they believed to be fossilized remains on a Martian meteorite that crashed to Earth 12,000 years ago.
Fossilized organisms. The Hopi, one of their translations of the Blue Star Kachina, was the Great Inhabitable Home. Now, Zachariah Stitchin, he translated the clay tablets, Sumerian clay tablets. He said that the Anunnaki are from Nibiru, which makes sense how they found our planet. There's a lot of evidence of flooding, but how about this one in Canada, not too far from us, where this ancient lake drained at the rate of 800 swimming pools per second. And why wouldn't it be 12? 12 is their number. 12 families of the Atlanteans / Anunnaki. 12 portals, 12 planets. They have a Dewey Decimal System of counting. Dewey Decimal is 12, and they count on 3 knuckles on the 4 fingers. Their day is divided into 12 parts, from sunrise to sunset. The ancients tell of the 12 North Stars and the 12 South Stars. Why did the ancients tell of that? Because of them. And the list really goes on. Sorry about the cliffhanger on the 1,000-mile-per-hour winds and the waves that are going to wipe us all out. Shockingly, right before I was going to film, I found somebody that's pretty much backing up everything I've been saying scientifically. The 12,000-year cycle, the pole shift coinciding with the magnetic reversal. And just in the first 20 minutes, I was able to get that. Edgar Cayce, 1958, NASA started. And that was the one I was like, why 1958? Because the sunspots. So these sunspots, they're holes in the sun, where the magnetic field is 2,500 times greater than here on Earth alone. You can imagine when they explode how great they are, and it's going to get worse and worse. These next 2 solar cycles are going to get more and more devastating. It's estimated, because the Torah actually gives us a date, that 2046 is when this is going to happen. 2 + 4 + 6 is 12. And so this happens every 12,068 years, roughly. There's been 6 cycles. The way he found out this cycle, there's a star and globula database, and there's 6 blank periods, and there shouldn't be. The star's supernova when this happens, and the nova dust is so bright that you can't see the other stars. So you can see there's 6 of these cycles so far. 4 of them, 12,068, 1, 12,067, same difference pretty much, and then the other is 11,415. Still, 1 + 1 + 4 + 1 + 5 is 12. I'll explain the winds first. What's going to happen is the Earth is actually going to stop rotating in its tracks before it reverses. It rotates at 1,000 miles per hour. So when this happens, all the water at that speed is going to just drown everything out. It's going to start with a very loud, violent earthquake that's going to just be going for ours. It's coming from the center of our Earth. I've already told some of you the center of the Earth has stopped orbiting its track and started to reverse, and it's going into speed, going faster and faster, much greater than the rest of the Earth. This definitely coincides. They just found a portal to the center of the Earth, to the sun. Our ancients tell us that the inside of the Earth is sun. They tell us that it's the same heat, and it's just a cosmic event. And you can find proof. I'm going to have to do proof of the reversal in another episode, but this is proof of pole shift. There is fresh spring buttercups, grass, seeds in these woolly mammoths' bellies that have evidence of extremely quick freeze, so much that one is stuck in a wave, which is this quick a freeze because of the nova gas. But you can see proof of a great pole shift from where it's tropical to frigid in the bellies and in the mouths. You can also see waves frozen in Antarctica, which used to be Atlantis. And so what's going on? So the Sumerian tablets tell us of a planet Nibiru that cyclically crosses into our solar system and drags all kinds of stuff with it and wreaks havoc on our Earth. And actually on the Umm Elish, the ones that are recently found, the 7 tablets of creation, it really reveals the truth, reveals that they're actually reptilian. That's how the government knows, by the way. And it reveals that the reason for the global flood is Nibiru passing. Now, there's a new planet crossing into our solar system, dragging all kinds of stars with it. One of them is closest to our sun than any other star, and it's coming closer. I'll be covering that tomorrow. The center of the Earth has stopped spinning, and now it's about to start spinning in the opposite direction. It always spins independently of the Earth, a lot faster than the rest of the Earth, actually. So it is held in place, frictionless, by its own gravitational field, like Haley said. There is something moving in the Earth that's causing this magnetic declination, like Haley said. And this happens every 7 decades. There's that number again. The second I heard this, I was like, okay, this is cyclical. How many of these 7 decades is it going to take for a bigger catastrophe? Because those are cyclical as well. And instantly, I thought, magnetic pole flip, in kind of like an obvious manner, and I think I just got confirmation of this in the Emerald Tablets. And then also continental drift. I already said I kind of think those coincide anyways. So I wanted to see what Professor Machio Kaku had to say about it, and he starts out saying, oh, this is natural, don't worry, but then he mentions the continental drift twice in the video, and then just how much we know nothing about the inside of the Earth.
The bad news is that we know very little about the core of the Earth, very little about what's underneath our feet. The good news is probably there's nothing to worry about.
What are the implications?
The implications are potentially enormous, because think of continental drift. Why are the continents moving away from each other? What is driving it? And also earthquakes, the whole nature of the stability of the planet itself. We know very little about what's underneath our feet, and we really don't know that much about our home. We know more about other planets. We know very little about the Earth, because the Earth is dynamic. Things are moving and churning at the center of the Earth. That's why we have earthquakes. That's why we have continental drift and volcanoes.
Yeah.
So, in other words, don't lose any sleep over this.
The South Atlantic anomaly is a place in the center of the Earth where the inner Earth Van Allen belt comes closest to Earth's surface, creating a weak spot dipping down through an increased flux of magnetic particles. So yeah, one more ingredient in the recipe, but did you notice that? The inner Earth's Van Allen belt is created from the sun. It's millions of high energy particles created from the sun. How do we have an inner Earth Van Allen belt if we don't have a sun in the Earth? Because we do have a sun in the Earth. The center of the Earth is sun. Now, not only has our ancients told us about this, many occultists, just messengers, these entities keep telling us about the center of the Earth. And not only have we found mountains, subterranean oceans, now we have a Van Allen belt. It's all recipes for the atmosphere told to us also. Agartha, Shambhala, call it what you want. What were we told about this pole shift reversal? That there's going to be a powerful shock wave that's going to surge through the Earth, out the Earth's equator. When a star novas, in the center of the star, creates a powerful shock wave, surges through the star, and blows it up. The center of the Earth and stars have the same center modulation point. What I'm saying is the center of our Earth is going to nova also during this event. They say that the center of a star and the center of our Earth both have a solid core, which I don't really take anything serious that they say. Complete contradictions constantly. Like, the sun is a star. Like, you can Google, it's Proxima. It has 3 suns. Those are the 3 stars. But they'll tell you that the sun doesn't have a solid core. The stars do, which how would they know anyways? And, tell you what star behavior is and sun behavior. It's a SME if it's a star, and a CME if it's a sun, and a star isn't supposed to act like a sun, yet it's the same thing. So just another example of how little they know. But just because there is enough similarities between the two to make them think this, I'm going to use it. But to be clear, the center of the Earth might have a solid core, but it is not an iron core. There's no way. The sun is spinning independently now, backwards, disconnected from the rest of the Earth. Like, there has to be, that can't be iron. There has to be a force to it. And speaking of that, that is what's going to cause the reversal. Think about it. The center of our Earth is now spinning the opposite direction, faster and faster and faster. When it novas, that's what's going to be enough force with our Earth spinning the other way to stop it in its tracks, hold it still, and then it's going to follow the sun in its tracks. And just to be clear, especially if you're new, this is not something you're going to Google. This is my opinion. You can't Google this stuff. They know that the sun novas. You won't be able to Google that. There's proof of this all over the planets that they've got testing. This meteor glass, every planet that they've tested, on the meteors too. They won't even tell you what meteor glass is. They'll tell you it's bits of leftover rock from debris billions of years ago. But it's not. It's from the sun novaing. That's why 12,000 years ago, we have all these reports of meteor glass from 12,000 years ago. Solar storm that melted the ice age in one day. Same thing. It's the sun novaing. And you can also see the proof of this in the sand. Now, also, as far as hindsight, melting the ice age in one day, duh, it's because the actual physical shift. Otherwise, the ice would have came back if it was in a cool region. I really was done with the doomsday stuff. I was raised in a doomsday cult. It was on the news. We call it the doomsday cult. So I kind of have an aversion to this stuff. This stuff just showed up in my recently watched in YouTube, and literally was just watching something on my phone, just like going to transfer to my TV. 2 videos, the connotation, I knew exactly what it was about. So I guess I'm not done. The first one is on the Great Lakes. Now, 3 of the Great Lakes, Huron, Michigan, and Erie, are connected to a giant cliff. How does this cliff happen? When land splits. And the cliff leads to Niagara Falls. They've been able to date Niagara Falls. Do you know how old it is? 12,000 years exactly. Same exact Nibiru timeline, same exact timeline from the moon when the vapor fell. There's been a huge mystery as how the Great Lakes got there, the water, everything. Now, what's attached under this huge rock cliff is a giant crater going under the 3 lakes. Impact crater, obviously. And there's huge boulders from Canada, hundreds of miles away. Oh, and this is Canada. Well, the Great Lakes go, from America into Canada, and Niagara Falls is Canada. Same exact region where the ancient lake was drained 800 swimming pools per minute, Olympic-sized swimming pools, and, a ton of other cataclysm evidence in North America. Now, they're not quite getting it. They think it's a glacier impact or ice sheets. But this doesn't fit 2 of the 5 lakes, Lake Superior and Lake Ontario. First of all, they're made of basalt. Lake Superior is 1,300 feet into the ground, is the lowest place on the continent. This only happens when the Earth splits in 2. Only. This is absolute 110% pole shift. And then, when the moon arrived 12,000 years ago, the water came and filled them all up. And I left this out in my other video. I didn't have enough time, but kind of interesting. The rock on the surface of the moon is younger than on the inside, which can only happen in 2 ways. 1, digging the older rock out, hollowing it out, or 2, something newer coming and put the older rock on the surface to stage it to make it look older than it is. And I'm not saying I think the first arrival was 12,000 years ago. I think it's cyclical. I think it coincides with all the destruction and the cleansing, quote unquote. And I think it's every 12,000 years, but I don't think it's as old as we think it is. So another video showed up in my recently watched, same exact situation. I was watching something on my phone, went to transfer it to the TV, and somehow there's something in front of it. The James Webb Telescope just discovered Proxima b. This is 110% Nibiru. And they spent $10 billion on this James Webb telescope. Why do you think that is? Just to track Proxima b, Nibiru. They know it. Now, they believe it supports life. Right now, they're trying to figure out if the lights coming from Nibiru are artificial. Radio signals have been picked up from Nibiru, and it's beaming with radiation. Now remember, the Anunnaki are originally from Nibiru, so there's other Anunnaki on the planet right now for sure. And Nibiru, as depicted in the Sumerian tablets, dragging all kinds of things with it, causing devastation, is dragging Alpha Centauri, which we can now see without a telescope. Great news, huh? It's blue too, blue star Kachina. Then Proxima Centauri is a red dwarf star, the red Kachina, and it is now closest star to our sun. And the closest star to Earth is Alpha Centauri, the blue star Kachina. The Hopi prophecy is coming true, and it fits it to the T. Like, it straight up says, see the blue star, the red star Kachina, the red dwarf planet, and its twin brother. Guess what? There's an Alpha Centauri A and Alpha Centauri B, and Alpha Centauri B has an orange glow. Now, obviously, these two are going to come closest to the sun and cause the changes with the sunspots that's going to cause the reversal. Even the Hopi prophecy says that they are going to shift the poles and change reversal. I mean, very specific. Now, also, Stitchin tells us not only is there life on the planet, Anunnaki, but it has a red glow. So this red dwarf star and the other star, they emit red light, and one half of the planet is always in the dark. And the video I was watching actually said if there's life on the planet, to get light on the other side, they'd have to have a sophisticated reflective system, otherwise LED lights. So if there's already red light, they'd be using red light anyways. It really fits it all to the T. And after spotting hints of disruption from this planet in 2013, astronomers have been searching for tugging on this planet. That means that this is Planet X. They just repackaged it because they don't want people to freak out about Nibiru. This is the planet I showed you the video, Planet X, that they were searching for the signs of tugging. So I also noticed 2013. I can guarantee you 2012 is when it started crossing into our solar system. I knew the Mayan prophecy date, 2012, was too significant with the 12 to be wrong. Just like Edgar Cayce gave us the beginning of the cycle of the pole shift, they let us know when it was crossing into our solar system, starting the cycle. Basically, through all these different cultures and prophecies, they're giving us hints of what's going on. So once I found out this planet is for sure Nibiru, and how many light years away, it just doesn't make sense that it could bring anything dragging into our Earth. And then, realizing the Sumerian tablets just says it's dragging stuff with it, and then thinking back to Hopi, and, it's called chasing planet. And there's a lot of misinterpretations with Hopi. But I did go back to Hopi, and they did say that, in one of the older interpretations, that a great inhabitable house fell to Earth. Now, interesting, Revelations calls this cataclysm, the rock that fell to Earth, wormwood. Remember, 12,000 years ago, the meteor they found that supported life, there was evidence of fossilized microorganisms. Sounds like wormwood, and looks like wormwood. Now, Revelation says a great star, blazing like a torch, fell from the sky, and Nostradamus depicts it almost the same exact way. Up in the sky, a great fire, dragging a trail of sparks. So this is clearly cataclysm. And anyone thinking, oh, well, Nostradamus could have got the idea from the Bible. What about the Bible having Nostradamus' end times book revealed inside of it? Nostradamus wrote a book, Vaticina Nostradamus. And this is a book on the end times, and has illustrations. 7 of them depicts when the event's going to happen. It's been in the Vatican Library, and it just resurfaced in the 90s. Now, Revelation says, and I saw in the right hand of him who sits on the throne, the Pope, a book, and inside and on the back had 7 seals. What kind of book has seals on the inside? Seals of fate. So, being as though the Bible and the Sumerian tablets are the same author, I'm going to go with yes, there is going to be a cataclysm. It's just not something being dragged by Nibiru. It's just a, cosmic event, just another recipe and the ingredient of this apocalypse, really. And NASA just announced that there is a meteor, an asteroid, larger than they've ever recorded, and it's hurling through space right at us. They estimate 2029 It has a 1 in 37 chance of hitting us, and that's another record breaker. And aside from the planet killer, they're calling this Apophis. Apophis is the Egyptian god or demon of destruction and chaos, and of course it takes serpent form. Apophis is cyclical, which means it's coming back again with a dangerous threat in 2035. And they have a space explorer now called OSIRIS-REx, which they are changing to OSIRIS-APEX, which will mean Osiris-Apophis Explorer. And they're sending it out to Apophis to get a sample. So if it comes back and there's fossilized microorganisms, we're going to know. When you get deep enough into the ground, the atoms are reversed north to south. Unfortunately, there's no accurate way to date rock. They're estimating 27,000 years around, but we've seen enough of how little they know about the center of our Earth lately. I'm going to show you more of that soon, too. It's 12,000 years for sure. And I'll give you an example of just how slow they want you to think this happens. A similar article about the bottom of the ocean floor, they're estimating the reverse of the atoms is less than 1 million years old. Anybody who's new, Charles Hapgood, worked as a predecessor to the CIA, Office of Strategic Services, was writing a book on the pole shift. And, he was being really cautious, and then he said, I'm just going to tell you how quick it really happens. Got hit by a car, book was never released. There's not only evidence of this quick change in the layer of the Earth, but also in the ocean floor, from all the way from Brazil through the Caribbean, and these little shell creatures that coil clockwise. Now, below the Ice Age layer, immediately, counterclockwise. Continental shelves near the coast have erosional features, drainage patterns. The canyons, they widen and flare towards the ocean. There's endless evidence of water must have stopped and went the other way. Now, it's fact that during the last ice age, the sea level was 350 feet below sea level. How does that happen? The reversal pushes it the other way. These gullies have to happen when there's water cutting over dry land. You can see Norfolk Canyon, Washington, how it cascaded through these gullies. And the famine, as Revelations puts it so delicately, men are going to start eating each other. A lot of these prophecies include the famine too. That makes sense. The sunspot cycle is going to become so hostile that plants, the world will be inhabitable to them. So you don't have plants, you don't have animals, you don't have soy products, you don't even have junk food. Everything primarily comes from the earth. Medications are going to become scarce. Unfortunately, it could be up to 10 years, like a famine, like 10 very bad years. So we kind of have to start doomsday prepping, unfortunately, like stockpile food. If you take a medication, double doctor, pay one out of pocket. Or if you have medication, you can say, hey, it's not working, I need double, do that. And I guess it's just perspective. First of all, they just found tools, 3 million year old tools in Kenya. It's inevitable. It has to happen. The Earth just becomes almost inhabitable at this point. Some places it's becoming inhabitable to where they have to start putting out COVID and stuff. Now, Edgar Cayce says that after this, we're going to become the 5th root race. He also says 2020 is when we're going to start living much longer lives, like on the style of Atlantis, like thousands of years. I'm going to have to do another video on my theories on that, probably next week. But, reincarnation, there's endless evidence through these children and their past lives. They remember what it is. They find the parents, find out they really died that way, whatnot. So, a few really bad years, one really bad day, and then maybe on to something. Betelgeuse is a red supergiant star in the Orion constellation. Orion is most significant to the Anunnaki, by the way. And it's been dimming and then brightening again. And this is not normal. Usually it should dim and then supernova. They've been waiting for it to supernova. Excited, scared, then it would brighten again, and just kept going back and forth, which is not normal star behavior. And then in 2019, it had very unusual star behavior, and it just combusted. It had a SME, surface mass ejection, which is not star behavior, it's sun behavior. A CME, coronal mass ejection. That's when the sun exploded, like I just told you, in April. And that one, by the way, was a 4 out of 5 on the NASA scale. But I think NASA scale is going to have to go up very soon. Betelgeuse's SME just ejected 400 billion times more mass than an average CME, which is pretty insane. Now, Betelgeuse is thought to be outside of our danger zone, but these supernovas can destroy Earth. They're like bioweapons, just completely destroy our biosphere, cover in radiation. Just one is bright enough to light up an entire galaxy, conceal billions of stars. That's why we have these blink periods. Now, it's not just Betelgeuse that's acting erratic. Every planet in our solar system is acting erratic, unpredictable, showing signs of what's going on. From Neptune, just had a storm reversal, which means they just had a reversal, to Uranus losing 20% of its atmosphere. I think I'm just going to have to caption in because it's a lot, it's time-wise. Not only did Chan Thomas, Edgar Cayce, and Charles Hapgood know about this 90-degree shift, quick shift, so did Einstein. He said that when this happens, Greenland and the portion of Antarctica south to Australia will be in the equator. Guess where Cuba is? 20 degrees north of the equator. It actually fits perfectly to have just broken off. Anybody knew? The pyramids under Cuba broke off of Atlantis, and Antarctica is actually Atlantis. Now, I have to retract the nova gas freezing the water of the Ice Age. So I thought that Doug Vogt, Dye-Hole Foundation, knew about the 90-degree shift. He knew about everything else. He was irritated with the cataclysm theory, and I just thought, yeah, like me too, only because the stupid vapor theory, even though I think there will be a cataclysm too. But no, his nova gas is just an extension of the vapor theory, how the vapor froze. So, I mean, he's, definitely aware of all these people, Charles Hapgood, Einstein, everyone's theory, and once you see it, you can't see it. It's so obvious. Like, his theory doesn't fit because there's not evidence of Ice Age everywhere. He's saying it'll hit one side of the Earth, which is going to be hot anyways, and then freeze the other side of the Earth. There's still tons of evidence of places with no Ice Age. So he either sees it and doesn't want to see it because he already had the vapor theory, or he's just that blind. So I'm going to stop taking notes from him. And I'm going to have to retract the little reference. These Edgar Cayce maps, they're not Edgar Cayce maps. I think Gordon Michael just used Edgar Cayce's name for publicity. He said he made them based on Edgar Cayce's predictions and his own. But I'm noticing some huge errors. Like, he didn't even make that many prophecies about America. Like, specifically said New York and California in the ocean. And then again, in his prediction about 2100, like he said, New York is completely gone. Alabama is partially covered in water. You look on the map, Alabama's completely there. New York is more than halfway there. So this is a big error. And then Atlantis, if he was really getting prophecies, he would have put it in the more correct location and the more correct size. This should be in the shape of Antarctica. Or it should be the little piece that dropped off behind. So I'm going to retract Edgar Cayce maps as safety and more good news. So the whole two volcanoes erupting, Mount Pelée and Mount Etna, and then having 30 days. I got this from many videos and articles, but I cannot find it in his prophecies. Like, if I'm missing somebody, if anybody can help me out, what I'm seeing is Mount Vivius, Mount Etna, and Mount Pelée will be signaling changes, not even erupting. I mean, at some point they'll erupt. And then where's everybody getting this 90 days from? So yeah, if any Edgar Cayce fans know something I don't know, please let me know. But I'm going to have to retract the 90-day warning and the two volcanoes. So we really don't have much warning of this thing. But volcanoes will be erupting. So we'll have a good idea it's coming. He also mentioned Canada, Southeast Canada, which must be the Appalachian Mountains, as a good safe spot. So if you can build something, build it there. But he didn't mention a whole lot of specifics on safe spots in America, unfortunately, and that's pretty much where we're going to have to build. However, there are, Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands, other territory we do own that are near the equator, or in the equator, that aren't going to move too far out. Just Google, wherever you're going to build it, evidence of Ice Age, and don't build it in a region with Ice Age. If you're going to build a bunker, don't have an electronic door, or make sure there's some kind of release that doesn't involve electricity. Use a lot of steel, and just be aware that it needs to be sealed completely. There's going to be water rushing over for about a week straight. Quick ad, I realized I left out a minor detail. So if we're here in America during World War III, we're not going to be here for the pole shift anyways. Hopi prophecy says World War III, which also Revelations mentions as one of the calamities leading up to this, that we're all toast and bunkers aren't going to save us, I assume obviously because it's unexpected. Now this should be taken seriously. Not only does Hopi prophecy align with all the others, but with Edgar Cayce too. They have similarities. They both said, Hopi says we're going into the fifth world. Edgar Cayce says fifth root race. They both tell us about how all colors of people were set on different parts of the world at the same time. Can't really mention it, a little racist. Edgar Cayce said 58 is when this cycle starts. Hopi got word from Entity in 1958 that it had started. By 1959, they had their 6-man tribe go to the United Nations building in New York City to give them this prophetic knowledge. All of their prophecies have come true until this one. And these worlds, don't misinterpret if you try to Google them that they lived through three worlds. One was fire, one was ice, one was what? No. It's fire, ice, flood. They even mention wind. They call it the shaking of the earth. They had the third great shaking of the earth, and we're going to the fourth. It all fits to a T. That being said, all these multi-billion bunkers will be left open. So after the radiation cools off, I'm going back. I'm going to the Denver airport. I can't really say any safety places in this video because it'll get removed, but I'll try to throw them in another video on a different subject. The 14 Tablets of Enki waste no time. Starts out talking about Nibiru, the radioactive cloud that kills everybody in its path. Now, they're calling planets gods and goddesses if you go to it yourself. Nimrod is Nibiru. Nimrod actually is Marduk. You'll see later. It's Marduk that built the Tower of Babel, Enlil that killed him. Now, it says that Nibiru, as it crosses close to our solar system, dipping towards the center, that it's Uranus that sprouts its four winds, comes too close, and actually causes devastation also to Nibiru. Now, remember, it was Uranus and Neptune that were both wobbling, which caused them to look into what's going on with this planet, suspect a ninth planet. And Neptune just had its reversal, and Uranus has a record-breaking storm and auroral activity. So this planet is crossing into our solar system exactly where the Sumerian tablets said it was going to cross into our solar system. And this storm activity, record-breaking storm activity, is going to hit Earth as well. These tablets say that's not just the tidal wave that's going to flood the Earth, that it's the rain too. So that means the 40 days and 40 nights could actually be true. These tablets say that the tidal wave is going to go on for 7 days. So Shantanis was only a day off. He said 6 days. Not only do the Sumerian tablets talk about the Black Sun, the Dead Sea, talks about the reversal, talks about the shaking of the earth coming from the center of the earth, the tidal wave, the storms. There's really not a part of this event that it does not talk about. Now, they also mention that last time all their spacecraft went into the air to save themselves. Now, the Hopi prophecy, I interpreted it the first time that it was like meteors or comets, talking about and all his friends. I think the extraterrestrials are going into the sky, and this could be why the government has admitted aliens are real, so that, on top of all the other chaos, we're not completely freaked out and thinking we're having an alien holocaust, which I'm sure people will anyways. And interestingly, the Sumerian tablets sometimes reference their extraterrestrial vehicles as chariots. And not only Ezekiel's chariot in the Bible, but also Elijah was taken up on one of these flaming chariots as well. There's a little bit of good news. The tablets say that the earth will be shaking and growling in pain for a few days before the event. Also that we're going to see Nibiru as a glowing blue star for these few days. So we have a warning, and this totally aligns with Hopi prophecy. I was kind of thinking just like we're just going to see the star for a long time, not knowing it's coming, but somehow it's going to be very bright in our sky for a few days before the event. Now, where in the Sumerian tablets does it ever say that Nibiru's cycle is 3,600 years? They only ever mention shars, not years at all. Stitchin's estimate was 3,600 years. You can find this anywhere. It's thought to be 3,600 years. Now, I haven't personally read this in the Sumerian tablets. I was watching a video, and the narrator said that the tablets say that Nibiru does not always cause harm when it cycles. So I think he was off by 600 years. And there's 4 of these cycles of 3,000 years. So the star, his star, as Edgar Cayce mentions, was the star in the sky in Bethlehem, and it just wasn't causing devastation. And every 4 cycles, it causes this devastation. The tablets also say that the Anunnaki made this decision to have this happen. So they chose the 4th cycle being 12,000 years. Dwarka, the sunken city of Dwarka, was where Krishna stayed. It translates to gateway. It was his island, and it was taken out in the last pole shift 12,000 years ago. They have found the sunken city of Dwarka. They're estimating it to be 10,000 years old. They're off by a couple thousand years. But this is even making them rethink the Mahabharata. They thought the Mahabharata was 7.5 thousand years old, and now they're admitting, okay, it has to be at least 10,000 years old. I've told you about the Mahabharata, the Vimanas, the celestial chariots that flew from the sky and out of the ocean. And they flew on Mercury. They revealed this to us thousands of years ago. And then all of a sudden, Mercury is found under the pyramid of Quetzalcoatl in a chamber. And also, I don't even have to say allegedly anymore. NASA is admitting they're experimenting with Mercury propulsion. But we've known for a while, those black triangle UFOs, all UFOs, they run on Mercury. The largest underwater volcano on Earth has erupted, and they just realized that it cracked the bottom of the ocean floor. The bottom of the Pacific Ocean is just split in two. And no volcano has ever been this terrifying. That's not my quote. Seems to be the consensus, but I agree. The 2015 eruption, it was so intense that it created a new island. The 2022 event, it devastated the ionosphere. The atmosphere rang the bell, pressure waves through the Earth. The amount of lightning it unleashed is just unheard of. In 5 minutes, over 25,000 lightning events. Over the course of 6 hours, 400,000 lightning events. It unleashed about 146 million tons of water vapor into the atmosphere. The flood was so bad that 9 civilians died. It was intense. And this is just a tiny fraction of what's going to be going on here when every volcano on Earth is erupting during the pole shift. Those 2 giant plumes they found inside the Earth, 600 miles deep into the Earth, one under Africa, one under the Pacific Ocean. What's going on in Africa? Split in 2. What's going on in the floor of the Pacific Ocean? Split in 2. So these are obviously very tied together, and it's kind of interesting how they're almost strategically placed on exact opposite sides of the Earth. And speaking of volcanoes and floods, I didn't even realize when I was doing my Yellowstone volcano research that the park was closed due to severe flooding.
This restless Yellowstone caldera is truly living, breathing. Every once in a while it bursts.
He's talking about that 30-mile wide, 10-mile deep liquid magma reservoir, which is actually nothing compared to the 400-mile volcanic snake that's going into the Earth, which 400 miles is right to that layer, right above the 600-mile layer that has these plumes. And, the Grand Canyon River, it's going into the Snake River that goes right into the Pacific Ocean. So, location-wise, this is a ticking time bomb.
Yellowstone in northwest Wyoming is also sitting atop a super volcano, and it just took what scientists describe as a deep breath, causing miles of ground to rise dramatically, and the ground has started to swell in levels that they have not seen before, 10 inches in some places in the past year. What does that tell us?
It tells us that there is activity in this supervolcano. That's a ring about 1,000 miles across. That's the heartline of America.
It would pretty much wipe out Earth as we know it.
It would wipe out the United States as we know it. And again, we don't want to panic anybody.
The Denver airport cost $4.8 billion to build. It was $2 billion over budget, and the American government just handed it to them. So generous. No agenda at all. And there's officially supposed to be 6 levels of underground tunnels and chambers, but unofficially, several contractors, including Phil Schneider, said there's actually 8 where extraterrestrials inhabit and work. Now, there is the longest runway of any airport, 3 miles. It's 53 square miles is the airport. And there is 5 buildings that are 7 to 15 stories high inside the Earth, underground. They said that they built the buildings in the wrong place, so they buried them. Oh, okay. That makes sense. Case closed. There is a 40-mile system of tunnels that connect the buildings and everything underground. It's thought that the tunnel actually goes to Cheyenne Mountain. Cheyenne Mountain is another safety bunker for the elite and the government inside a mountain, and there's several of these. In 2011, when a huge comet was coming towards Earth, they probably thought it was Nibiru, they took Obama. Well, they were supposed to take him to Cheyenne Mountain. Instead, they took him to the Denver airport. So that's how big this place is and what its intentions are, I'm sure. Let's look at the murals inside the Denver airport. There's a Nazi ruling an apocalyptic war with a Masonic Shriner's sword. There is dead children, burning buildings, burning forest, a little child, Mayan child, with a Mayan tablet depicting the end of the world. Bunch of little children from all over the world surrendering their flags to a little blonde German boy. There's a Masonic plaque at the airport saying New World Airport. And there, as soon as you go up to the airport, there's this huge 900-pound blue horse with glowing red eyes, glowing red veins protruding out of it. extremely Four Horsemen, like apocalyptic. And it's kind of strange that it's blue with like red blazing, very blue Kachina, red Kachina.